Welcome to the Be That Healing Girl podcast. And today's episode is all about how to cope with relationship anxiety. And if you're watching on YouTube, you saw my bunny fingers. But if you're listening, I did little bunny fingers with the word cope because I definitely know that I used to try to cope with relationship anxiety. And with so much love, it does not work. But we're going to go over coping and what you can do instead in relationship if you have a lot of anxiety. And I made this episode, especially if you're a girly that is constantly overthinking and analyzing every little exchange. Maybe something small happens or they're on their phone and you feel like they're mad at you, or you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're just going to up and leave. That is all what I would consider relationship anxiety, aka anxious attachment. And if any of that is true for you, then we're going to talk about what you can really do. And if you're new here, my name is Claire, and I definitely have been there, and I love supporting overachieving, high-achieving girlies who struggle with feeling super anxious in your relationship, even though you are slaying the game in your career, climbing the corporate ladder as an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're excelling at, it somehow is not hitting it in your relationship. So if that's you, then you're in the right place. And I can't wait to dive into today's topic because we're going to really look at how you can reframe this differently for yourself. Now, if you're enjoying this podcast, obviously, if you're here, you might have found me on other platforms like TikTok or Instagram at BeThatHealingGirl. And if you're enjoying the podcast, it means so much to leave a 5-star review. Seriously, I love seeing every single week. I get more and more reviews, and seriously, I see that. I love you so much. It means so much to me to grow this podcast and truly just to get this help and support out to more women. So you leaving a 5-star rating really helps, and I appreciate and love you so much. Okay. So let's dive into, how do we cope? And I wanted to share this experience that happened to me literally 2 or 3 days ago. And so my husband and I, and if you're really new here, I used to be very anxiously attached, and my husband used to be avoidant, and now we have a secure relationship. And I think one thing that I think is really important to share, we didn't create a secure relationship just because we're married. I think that's just one myth along with, I'll just cope with this relationship anxiety. That is something that I used to think that, oh my gosh, if I just get married, if I just find the right person, then it will be better. My anxious attachment will go away. And let me tell you something, that is not true, okay? And I'll share what happened with my husband first, and I'll tell you why that doesn't work. So we had a very hard first 2-3 years of dating because we were both in our attachment styles. We didn't really have any tools, and we were really kind of learning together. And at the core of it, we loved each other so much, still love each other. And as we started healing and looking at what was really at the root cause of our attachment styles, we started to get better tools. We had better tools to communicate, how to address our own things and our own wounds that create our attachment styles. And 7 years later, my husband and I are in the other day having this big conversation. And these big conversations that we've been having are around our future and what we're doing. If you didn't know, we live full-time in an RV, traveling around. Right now we're in San Diego. It's super fun. And we've got to put some plans together because my mom is just getting older. We have a property in Denver, and there's a lot that we're going to have to look at and get real with each other and get on the same page. And typically, I'm not going to lie to you, these conversations used to have a lot of charge. And what I mean by charge, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of high potential to hear and get it wrong with each other. Or I mean, it's just like there's money involved, there's timing, there's his timeline, my timeline, his goals, my goals. There was, as you can see and just hear by all of that, a lot of potential for charge. And we're human, right? We're like, I hope I share enough on my socials and hear that we're human. My husband and I are great. We have a freaking mind-blowing relationship, and we're also human. So we're having this conversation. There's some charge. We're using the tools. And even at the end of the conversation, this old thing, this old wound that I have that used to create my anxious attachment kind of flared up. And how I deal with that kind of stress is very different than my husband, all right? And I say this very carefully because we're different people, right? So my typical thing is I want to know right now, we got to figure it out. Let's talk about it. Let's make up. Let's go back to cool, right? That was kind of my thing. And if you know, you know, all right? And my husband is just very different. He needs time to chew. He needs time to digest. He needs time to like make the meal. I don't know why I'm talking about food I just ate, but he operates very differently. In fact, like let's just go along with food. He digests slower than I do. So I have like a fast emotional metabolism, and he has a very slow metabolism. So, and by the way, one isn't better or one's worse. One isn't right or one isn't wrong. That tends to be what we would call absolute thinking or black and white thinking. Okay, so in that conversation, I noticed that, I was feeling a little like, unsure. And my typical thing is to think that he is mad at me, okay? And in reality, that has nothing to do with him. That's just an old wound inside of me. And so all that being said, I go and continue on with my day, and I ask him, are you mad? And he lets me know in that moment, no, I'm not. And I'd say an hour later, we're going on with our day. He kind of circles back to me. He pulls me in his arms. He looks me in the eye. He said, hey, I just want to remind you that when I get silent or when I get quiet, I'm not mad at you. I'm actually mad at myself. And it was so powerful. And even in that moment, I have to say, it's going to sound like a brag. And honestly, it is. It's a brag because we have worked so freaking hard. So hard, y'all. So hard to get to that place where we're both holding ourselves, we're not making each other wrong, and coming together and communicating well. And honestly, I felt so validated and also just so proud of him for being able to take that step. Now, I say this, and I know that might sound like braggy, but I'm saying it because I want to show you potential. Because it was not that way. It was not that way when my husband and I started. And I want to go back to the word cope, okay? And cope sounds like hope. And the thing that I know would not bring my husband and I together and have the relationship that we do now, where we do so many amazing things. We're in it together. We spend so much time really working on a relationship. And it's so beautiful because of that. I know that if I had stayed with the mindset and the idea or the thought that I'm just going to cope, I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that things get better, that mentality would have absolutely been the nail in the coffin for me and my husband. And so I just want to say that if you're in a place of like, how do I deal with it? Or the framework for you could be, how can I make this better? And at least for me, this is what I used to do to cope with my relationship anxiety. I did everything else but actually work on myself, literally. And so if the first layer for me that I noticed is that, okay, when I first found out that I had anxious attachment, literally my solution, I'm going to find somebody with a secure attachment. All right. I'm going to find somebody that has a secure attachment. And guess what? I did. I found multiple people that had secure attachments. And guess what I did? I blew those MFers up. I took those secure, healthy, wonderful relationships. And because I didn't address my own wound, those exploded because I wasn't doing the work. I was trying to solve it in an external way. I'll just find somebody else. I'll pick, instead of John, I'll pick James. I don't know why I'm on J's, but David, I'll pick Tom. And I would just keep trying to solve the problem on a surface level to cope with my anxious attachment, and it wasn't working. All right. And then I've always been in therapy on and off my whole life. And I was going to therapy and I was doing the things and really trying to work on myself. I was starting to do yoga. And while those are all beneficial, okay, they were beneficial. The thing is that I hit a plateau, and really I would say I was doing all those things and then some until I met my husband. I still did it when I met my husband, but when I met my husband, that's when it got real. The ish got real, y'all. I had to really dial it in. I had to figure something out. I had to do something. And I just want to say that, yeah, for some people, coping works, but I see coping as putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound, or just putting some spit on a scab, or I don't know, trying to think of some alliteration here, trying to put Crisco on a cut. Okay. Now, in an emergency situation, fine. Crisco on a cut, fine. But Band-Aid on a bullet wound, fine. But that is only a short-term solution. It's not actually going to work. So yeah, you might go take a walk. And by the way, walking outside, getting sunshine, great for the nervous system. It might help calm you down in the moment, but you need something more. I need something more than just the Band-Aid. I need something more than just Crisco, right? And here's the thing. If I just put Crisco on a cut, I'll tell you right now, I don't know how that's going to look in 6 months. God willing that you don't have an infection, but you might have some scarring, right? So I really encourage you, don't just look at coping. Don't just look at getting by with it, all right? Because one of the biggest blessings I know from meeting my husband is that he is, and I am for him, and he is for me, the clearest mirror for me to get truth and to heal wounds. And truthfully, I really, on a woo-woo level, I know I'm 1 foot in the woo, 1 foot in the work around. We are all attracting exactly what we need into our lives to heal. We're attracting exactly what we need to heal, to grow, and to gain perspective, and to be better. And one of the things that I'm so grateful for with my husband, because there were many times I could have just walked away. He could have walked away. We could have chosen to stay in our comfort zone. And one thing that I'm so proud of myself personally, and what we've done in our relationship, is that we have constantly tried to grow, constantly pushed past our comfort zone. And so coping to me is a really not great word, because it really, to me, coping is this representation of staying in the comfort zone. And I don't know about you, and if you're listening to this, I guarantee that this is not your vibe anyway, but I don't want to stay in the comfort zone. I want transformation, baby. I want to have something that is beyond what I already know and what's familiar. And coping is just staying comfortable. It's not actually pushing past what we're familiar with. It's just staying right there, sedentary, comfortable. And that is so dangerous, I feel, for us as humans in our lives, and also for a relationship. And that is one thing that I know in my relationship, we are so good. It's constantly challenging. And in fact, us living in an RV has been so hard and also incredibly beautiful for our relationship, because and I knew this getting into this lifestyle. If you can't, if you're watching on YouTube, this is like our bedroom. But I knew that living and traveling full time was going to be so challenging, but also so beautiful. And it's true. Our relationship has literally grown so much deeper because we not only find the challenges, but we face them. And I think that is hands down what has gotten us to that level of love and understanding and compassion, where he pulls me in his arms and says, and reminds me that this is his thing, that his silence doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. And so the fact that we are so willing to get out of our comfort zone by literally changing our environment, I know that's an extreme example. I'm not saying that you have to go live and travel full time, but I want to really show you that to be content is dangerous. To be comfortable is dangerous for relationships. Because really, no matter what you're doing, whether you live in the Midwest and you have a cute little picket fence, or you're in the city in New York and you're doing this, you're doing the girly life in New York City, the Sex and the City thing, that comfort is so dangerous because you are going to change. At least I hope so. I mean, God, I hope everybody in some way grows, no matter how fast or slow, in the course of your life. And relationships are going to grow too, hopefully. And the reality is you're either going to grow together or, unfortunately, we grow apart. So being so willing and ready to face whatever fear there is and not coping, that's how you cope with relationship anxiety. It's actually how you grow. So, and I also think this is important because I have a client who also kind of reflects the same thing. So I mentioned before that just because you get married, that's not a guarantee that you won't have these anxious symptoms. And I have another client who's deep into marriage. They've got kids, and she is also experiencing really some major opportunities for growth. There's some major friction in her relationship and her marriage because she hasn't tended to her deeper wounds that cause the anxiety. And so I know that a lot of my clients are in a relationship. I have a handful that are single and wanting to date and are trying multiple dating multiple people. But and I've helped and seen all levels of relationship anxiety. And one thing that I think is so important, which inspired me to make this podcast, this is proof, like my client, myself, that just because you're married doesn't really mean that you're safe. That meaning I got complacent, or that we could get complacent, that I'm not going to feel these symptoms if I'm married, and it's just not true. And you really want to address these things, whether they are a make or break in your relationship or marriage, or you just want to feel the peace and the safety that I know is everyone's birthright in relationship. And that starts with you. So I don't recommend coping, even though that's the title of this, but I want you to thrive. I don't want you to cope, y'all. I want you to thrive, honey bunny. Like, you deserve that. I know in my heart, believe me, I know in my heart that you deserve a mind-blowing frickin' relationship where you get surprised and sweet things happen and they hear you, they receive you, you have your own thing and they have their own thing and you have this thing together. I know that is 100% possible for you, but you can't just cope. You've got to grab it. You've got to take action. You've got to look at your wounds, look at the default programming in your behavior, in your thoughts, in your emotions, okay? So that's my little rant. Also, just in case you're noticing, I don't have notes today, and I didn't for the last episode. So please tell me, send me an email, send me a DM, or tell me here on YouTube if you are noticing it, if you're liking me kind of riffing on it. I honestly needed notes at first, and I feel I'm at this level now where I'm feeling more comfortable, and you get me, that I can just kind of riff. So if you are noticing and liking the No Notes Claire on the podcast, let your girl know. And again, it helps so much if you leave a 5-star review. I love you, and I'm thinking of you. You got this. Mwah.